The ego is always telling us something, without us even realizing it. In extreme cases, it even says the complete opposite. It can talk into our ears aggressively or passively, two completely opposite types of the ego. Understanding the ego is like understanding medicines. It is said that everything can be either a medicine or poison. The only difference is the dose. An aggressive ego, when a person is selfish to others and motivated mostly by himself, is like an overdose of medicine, harmful. Due to his extreme egoism, he does not see anyone or anything around him because he has no love for others. The other extreme is when a person thinks only about others and never about himself because he has no love for himself. It's like taking too little medicine and again, wrong. Although it seems completely opposite, both behaviors are motivated solely by fear, during which fight or flight mode is activated. Only for the aggressive ego, he is an unconscious motivator that forces him to aggression and selfishness, fight. And for the passive ego, he is an unconscious motivator that forces him to passivity and selfishness to himself, flight. There is a long list of irrational fears that unconsciously govern us, and the main one is the fear of change. Because if we want, for example, to face our fear of failure or another people's opinion, we will have to initiate a change to face these fears. Putting too many others before yourself is just as wrong as putting too much of yourself before others. Therefore, the state without ego, rather emotional maturity, is like taking an exact amount of medicine. Contrary to popular opinion, it is not only selflessness towards others and giving, but also taking care of oneself when necessary. That is courage and determination, rather self-love, because how we will help others if we don't help ourselves? In fact, rationality and pragmatism in making all life decisions, regardless of whether they suit us and whether we like them at that moment. We only look at whether it is right, including for the one who makes that decision. In moments when a person manages to balance between the aggressive me, only me ego and the passive poor me, we can say that we are in balance and that we are in maturity and love. Because there is a fine line between an ego and love. There is a fine line between I love you and aggressive I love how I feel around you. There is a fine line between I love you and passive I'm afraid of being alone without you. An aggressive ego is a pure selfishness that comes from fear and insecurity. He is loud and ugly. It's always about me. I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied. I want this. I deserve respect. Me, me, me. There is simply no room in our thoughts for anything else if we think so much about ourselves. There is no room for love and creation. The aggressive ego lives in the future, never in the present, because the ego cannot live there. Tomorrow will always be better, and he will be happy when he does one more thing, gets a better job, pays off a loan or something else. There is always a reason why now is not good and tomorrow will be better. He is driven by unfulfillment and is always missing something, or he needs more because he is always hungry for attention, things, or confirmation of his worth. The aggressive ego covers up his own fears and insecurities by imposing, and the need to be better in all aspects because it needs confirmation of its own identity. If we identify with material things, it is logical that by buying a new house in the best neighborhood or expensive car, our ego receives confirmation that it is better than others. When we are only interested in topics that interest us, we listen to our aggressive ego because everything outside it is strange and uninteresting to us. That alone limits us, and that's why we don't learn, because the ego binds us only to what is important to itself. There is also a quieter version of the aggressive ego. Passive aggression, the victim's role, only means that the person is afraid of direct conflict, so he shows his aggression in a passive way, through anger or sadness, which is just a manipulative tool. They want to transmit all emotions like a virus to everyone whose emotional immunity is not strong enough to defend themselves. What does an aggressive ego look like in practice? In 2019, former US President Donald Trump, the man who gave a new dimension to the influence of ego, wrote on Twitter, "Show me someone without an ego and I'll show you a loser." The consequences of his aggressive ego were obviously less important to him, regardless of who he influenced and how strong the consequences were, because only he is important. He is completely unaware of himself and his behavior. Do you think he thinks he's wrong about anything? And this is another problem with the aggressive ego. It seems like something everyone would want. Well, he's the president of the USA. Ask yourself why you would like to be president. To help others or to be important? From position of our soul and maturity, it is not important what do we do, only why do we do it. For Mr. Trump, it is obvious that other people's problems are not his focus. And does he look joyful, selfless, and curious to you as an emotionally mature person? I believe you would want his position, but would you really want to be him? When you see a good man, kill him so he doesn't suffer. This proverb best describes the challenges of the passive ego. The main feature of the passive ego is diametrically opposite to the aggressive ego. These are the people who are good for everyone but themselves, and in this kindness, they are even prone to excessive altruism, which makes them uncomfortable because this goodness comes from fear, not from love. And that's why the passive ego is just as wrong as the aggressive ego. They are most often considered good people because no one asks how they are and if they are good for themselves. And no one is responsible for taking care of us except ourselves. They believe that good comes back to good. And they are right. But they also forget to be good to themselves. That is the crucial part they are missing in the equation. The problem with this type of ego is that it's not subject to the classic perception of ego, so it is not even associated with it. But it is just the opposite type. Most artists who died tragically in show business were hostages of their passive ego, manifested in self-destructiveness. Lacking self-love and trapped in the wanderings of their thoughts and emotional turmoil, without awareness, conscience, or courage to face reality, they often resorted to excessive consumption of opiates as a substitute for love. Ultimately, this would result in a tragic outcome, of which there are unfortunately too many examples. Clearly, many people have strong, aggressive, or passive ego. Fortunately, even more people have mild ego. They have their challenges, but they are reasonable, calm, and kind. They instinctively know when they should show attention, give importance to others, and when to themselves. One of my friends is like that. He knows a lot and doesn't care what he doesn't know. He doesn't really think about ego, personal development, and all that new age bullshit. He prefers to direct his curiosity to work or dedicate it to the opposite sex. Best of all, he's a really cool person. He is unaware of how aware he behaves. He is genuinely joyful and cheerful person, happy eating a simple sandwich in the park, if necessary, or in the most expensive restaurant. He is very good at saying yes and no. He is accepted in society, and we can say that in many cases he is even a leader. He has almost no problems. And that's the problem. His ego is quiet and does not cause him suffering that would awake him, so there is no need for changes. He's quiet, but he hasn't left. Even worse, it governs only from the subconscious because he fears poverty. Although he is sure that he has subordinated his whole life to himself, he does not control his life. This fear controls him. He never asks himself and his own soul what he was meant for, what he sincerely loved, and how to achieve it. And his ego is popular, and his surroundings applaud him because he's successful in business, and nobody cares about his personal maturity anyway. And his ego tells him that he spends most of his days working, and he tells him to measure a person's value by business and material success. He tells him that he doesn't have time for himself, and that it's not time to dedicate himself to his true passion, to its true purpose, art. If he feels dissatisfied, he drinks a beer or lights up a joint to calm down. It's normal, everyone does it. One small manifestation of the ego, a small fear of poverty, completely determines his life, which is why he has normal problems. He cannot achieve a stable love relationship. He would like love in his life, but he's not ready to provide it. Maybe he would become a top artist and create thousands of miracles. Maybe he would help neglected children and show them the love they never felt through his business or even art that he would discover. Isn't it a shame that he won't find out anything about it? And at the very point of life without ego are people who live a conscious life and are aware of it. They saw their own insignificance and their own infinity. And they understand the value of selflessness so much that they are unclear to their surroundings. And they understand the value of sharing so much that they cause resistance. And most importantly, they live every day and every thought with this awareness and love, joy and selflessness. All of this is in nature of our souls, hidden behind the ego. Our soul creates the need for higher knowledge about us and our surrounding, and need for our overcoming the challenges that stand in the way of this knowledge. This is precisely why people are capable of extraordinary things, to soar to the heights of heaven to explore the universe, or dive deep within themselves to explore the expanses of their inner selves. All this results from the pure curiosity of our souls. It is very important to note that they can be 18 or 88 years old. Age itself does not make any difference in the maturity of the soul. They do not know suffering because they listen and follow their intuition and soul and make purposeful changes to answer the questions they intuitively ask themselves. And they are completely focused on creation and passing on acquired knowledge, whatever they have, because they are no longer concerned with satisfying their ego, but rather with love. My name is Zoran Salopek, and in the next episode we will discuss all the misconceptions tied to our ego.